Good morning and welcome to the live streams straight off the bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. Today, if you're in Trinidad and Tobago watching this, it is pouring most of the island. I am welcoming it. So sit back, I don't know, curl up with a cup of tea because we're going to have a conversation about shifting the cashless reality of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago with Carlos Newton. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. Don't forget to smash that follow button to continue seeing content that'll help you manage your money. Today, Carlos is joining us from the Trinidad Tobago Financial Center. He's the manager of financial system service delivery, and he's responsible for planning and implementing strategies that aid the development of the financial service sector ecosystem. I have so many questions for him, especially when it comes to the cashless and contactless payment situation. He also has a background in Masters of Business Administration, which is an MBA that he received from the University of Bedfordshire. In his spare time, he likes to cook, so we want to have a little insight into his rosemary lamb. I love rosemary as a herb, not so much the movie. But let's welcome Carlos in. Hi.
Hi, good morning, Pauline. How are you this morning?
I am great. Is it raining where you are?
Yes, it is pouring actually.
I am happy to have showers. I don't know how you feel about that.
Welcome the showers. It's just that it gets very cold in the office.
That's okay. We'll layer. So let's get straight into it, right? Because this conversation around um online payments, e-commerce, there's all these different terms. So for the purpose of this conversation, we want to make sure that we are all on the same wavelength. What is a cashless payment?
All right, so the definition or what we could consider cashless payment is any form of digital means of exchanging financial transactions. So, me sending you money or you making payments for any form of product or services without the use of cash. So, any sort of electronic payments.
Okay, so we're talking about, because I mean, I have insight into how Trinidadians visit websites online, and I've seen that Amazon has been top 10, more recently top 5 in terms of how people actually engage with the website from an e-commerce
Mhm.
perspective. So that's considered cashless.
Yes, so that from that perspective, making those payments are actually cashless payments.
Okay, so let's bring it down. Let's bring it more locally because we're seeing the shift, obviously, with people not necessarily wanting to interact with human beings because there's this thing we're all going through, as well as businesses trying to connect with their customers because, we usually go with word of mouth. And more recently, I actually saw a very popular sort of construction concrete type business um, sharing some news that they are closing their locations and asking people to purchase online. So what is your take on what's been happening? Because from a cashless perspective, there's obviously going to be effects within Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So again, remember, cashless payments is utilizing, let's say, any form of electronic means to make your payments. Maybe credit cards, debit cards, using automated clearinghouse, which is ACH. We have, which is bank transfers, websites, mobile phone, a kiosk. So what happens is that it's going to have both, I would say, positive impacts on the economy for one, as well on businesses. So it reduces the need for actual having a brick and mortar, right? Where you can now transact and provide the same services using online facilities using a cashless database. It also reduces operational costs. So you no longer have to worry about cash in transit, security, to get the cash to the bank. So it reduces costs in that way for the businesses. So it makes it more efficient and makes you more efficient to run your business. So you can see everything online, real time. No need for cash.
And, as a small business owner myself, I welcome the ability to track these things without have to physically doing it on a, piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet. And more recently, I think during lockdown, we saw this option for our cards to be able to, from a point of sale perspective, just tap. So can you share with us what a contactless payment is? What does that mean for the consumer as well as the business owner?
All right, so contactless payment, which is the opposite now. So contactless payment just means that the difference of paying with cash is where you actually can tap to pay, use your mobile phone to pay. If you have NFC or RFID technology, right, it requires any individual, any person, just using a smart compatible smartphone, compatible debit card or credit card, on any terminal that is provided, that you can actually make these payments. Right, it's completed in a short period of time. Um, it's more safe, it's more secure, and it's very convenient. It actually reduces the time at the cash register.
So I'm going to be the devil advocate here because
Mhm.
a lot of countries have had this. I remember when I was traveling pre-pandemic, I everybody would be like, "Yeah, just tap your card." I'm like, "Guys, mine doesn't do that. I have to do the swipe." I'm like, "Oh, what?" So so over the last year or so, I think it was implemented. What was the reason that it took so long?
Um, it's all about adoption and access. If you have access for it to be used, I mean, looking at it in a local scheme, if you have access to be used locally, you would see more person adopting, and then it comes back now to awareness. You have to make persons aware that here is what you have the capability to actually perform a contactless payment using your cards. So it's a number of things looking at, and then it comes from the development perspective, from the banks who provide the terminals, ensuring that they have the requisite terminals in the market to actually accept contactless payments. So as it why it took so long, not sure. From the banking perspective, each institution will have their roadmap and their strategic outline of when they want to implement these things, and then they will do it in that time period.
Okay, thanks for taking the hot seat so well, Carlos. We appreciate you for that. Now, we're talking about, this ability to tap on the point of sale because a lot of business owners will join us in these live sessions. And a lot of point of sale may not necessarily be updated. Why do you think it's important for businesses to request this feature from their bank?
Um, it's important. One is it ease of doing business, where it actually, as I said before, reduces the time that a person spends at the cash register. Right. It also reduces the amount of cash that you will have on premise at any given time. Um, so you can, through your bank, request that here's what I want to go contactless. And even within the pandemic now, that you want to reduce contact with receiving a card, having to swipe the card and put the card. It also reduces that actual person-to-person transmission. So yeah, making those requests to your banks and saying, okay, I want to have these sorts of terminals within my facility, within my organization, is good. Also, the transactions are safer. Right? Tap to pay transactions have shown to be found more reliable and more secure than any form of payment, even from the swipe perspective, even from the cash payment. So you can also look at that perspective as well.
So we can't talk about cashless without talking about our culture in Trinidad and Tobago, which is it's very cash driven. Like within the trade, for instance, I had a plumber come over yesterday and he requested payment via cash, and I physically don't have that. And there's this obviously this comfort level with, well, I don't want this to go through the bank, or I don't it'll take too long. So what say you to that business owner who is just comfortable in the cash space?
To that business owner, I would say, okay, here's what. Yes, you may be comfortable. However, going cashless again, ease of use, simplicity, just tapping, having the provisions for customers to just tap and leave, less times at your cash registers. You can even, if you want to expand your business into kiosk type business where you don't have any human interaction, person goes to the kiosk, they make their payment, they tap to pay, and they leave. As I said, the transactions are safer than the normal swipe, as well as it allows for flexible payments. Right, consumers can either access the payments using the cards once they have the NFC enabled, or the RFID, and even from the smartphones, which will be coming, I would presume, to Trinidad and Tobago pretty soon.
Do you have an opinion as to why we are so we have this stronghold on cash?
It's all about culture. It's all about culture. Everyone believes cash is king. Now, cash is always going to be around. However, the reduction of it in the market, and based upon how we are accustomed doing business, if you look at the economy and look at how culturally we do business, is always cash driven, is cash heavy. And that's why the government in Trinidad and Tobago is actually trying to change that narrative by actually implementing different cashless models within government agencies. So you have the online, you have the terminals, you have where you can actually now pay at payment service providers. So the government through TTFC is actually working to reduce that cash within the organization. And even from another additional, from the business perspective, it improves operational efficiency, right? It offers a better customer experience. So those two added to what I said before, added to these two, which is the improve operational efficiency and better customer experience, allows for business to run better than what we had before.
You know, it's so interesting. I see a lot of similarities with the health, the health industry where they're pushing these um get lose weight fast, and we know that we have to change certain things about our habits, but it's so hard to do it. So hearing all the benefits of what it means to be cashless, it's I feel like there's going to be this hurdle of do I really want to change my entire business model just because somebody tell me it's going to be easy? Is it actually going to be easy? What say you to that person?
Oh, yes, it's going to be easier. It's going to provide you with a number of advantages in doing business, right? You can now track all the payments. Two, you don't have to worry about in-house cash. I have to say it, crime is on the rise. Um, So you have to be mindful of this. So having less cash on premise, less cash in transit, you have to worry about is going to reduce cost of security. So that's the first thing. You'll have to pay security to take that cash into the bank for you because you don't want to do it yourself because it's a risk. So having the cashless model, having contactless, it will provide these advantages and provide them to the business or even to the government.
I don't know if it's an age thing. Well, I mean, I'm not Gen Z, I'm millennial, but the idea of cash just scares me because it's not something that I want to walk around with. So as a consumer, it's interesting to see how we are evolving slowly as such. But we're going in that right direction. So what we're gonna do, because we're gonna go on a quick break, but when we come back, there's some acronyms we used earlier that we're not familiar with. That's DNS and RFID. So when we come back, we'll figure out what Carlos is actually saying. We'll be right back.
But that was like my first experience with money. Very, very first experience.
I've been in banking since I was a teenager.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you join us from LinkedIn, follow us now. Trust me, it'll help you. It'll help you understand how to manage your money. And who don't need that advice right now? I need it for sure. Today we're discussing shifting to the cashless reality of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago with Carlos Newton. Now, Carlos is going to share some insight on a lot of information, and I think it's important for us to listen in. But don't forget to slide into the comments because we do have a Q&A section, and I did see Anil. I mean, Anil, you are spitting some really good questions here. I'm going to ask that later. But just for an FYI, Carlos is the manager of financial system service delivery at the Trinidad Tobago Financial Center. He's responsible for planning and implementation of strategies that aid the development of the financial service sector ecosystem. He also holds a master's of business administration from the University of Bedfordshire, and he likes to cook. So we're going to mesh all of that in the recipe, and we're going to bring him in again and have the discussion, because if you're just joining us earlier, he reference some acronyms and we want to find out what that means from a cashless society. So give us some heads up, Carlos. What is, first of all, DNS and then RFID? Can you give us
All
some
right, so
explanation?
actually, I think the first one was NFC, which was near field communication. All right, is the technology you have on your cards where you can actually make payments utilizing the tap to pay. And then you have the other options, which is radio frequency identification, which is RFID, which is also another sort of technology that you can also use utilizing contactless payments.
So just for context, because I've seen this when I've traveled, where people use their phone to just basically tap. It's actually in the New York subway where you could just tap it and you're able to go through. So there's information on your phone that allows you to easily pay for something without even having a card.
Right, so what happens is that your phone acts as your card. So within your phone, you will either have something called a mobile wallet or Google Pay, Apple Pay, these different types of wallets. And your phone has a capability of NFC, which is near field communication, which enables you to actually tap your phone to make that payment, utilizing the NFC technology.
Now, in my attempts to be part of the cool kids, I did try to sign up for like the Apple Pays and stuff like that, but it does not allow us in Trinidad and Tobago because you have to have a US account. So, is there something that maybe you can give us a little exclusive insight from the Trinidad and Tobago uh, Financial Center? Is that coming? Is that a plan in the future?
All right, so for the local ecosystem, I can't speak for the providers out there, the PSPs or the mobile wallet providers, what technology they may be bringing. What I do know, there are some banks out there that are going to be bringing this technology to Trinidad. We have the NFC technology. So if you look on some of your cards, you will see this little frequency, like your Wi-Fi frequency on your card that face sideways. Instead of facing up to down, it faces horizontal. So it looks like more parallel. That sign there is NFC. That means that your card is enabled to actually present or make contactless payments.
I'm excited to be part of the cool kids, so I'm hopeful that it comes soon. But this conversation isn't about just me, but there are a lot of people who are unbanked. So we're gonna head over to the comment section, and Anil has a question because earlier we were talking about the culture of cash in Trinidad and Tobago, but there's also a large section of individuals who are unbanked.
Right.
So as a business owner, you want to be able to reach everybody. So if you're focused on this cashless and contactless, you might miss out on the folks who are unbanked. What is your feedback there?
All right, so first things is that in order to actually understand or look at the unbanked population, you have to understand why are they unbanked. So currently, TTTIFC is working on conducting Trinidad and Tobago's first financial inclusion survey. Out of this survey, it will let us know, okay, why are persons unbanked? What are the what are the problems that cause them to be unbanked? Why they choose to be unbanked, or if not, what are the barriers that are preventing them to become banked? And once we have this information, we will then be able to put, or the government will then be able to put things in place to have these persons become banked, and if they're unbankable, become bankable, right? So, and how would it benefit them? With the introduction of different types of mobile payments, mobile wallets, and these fintech type services, persons that are unbanked will now be able to actually take part in the financial sector.
I I'm very intrigued by this conversation because it's like which comes first, the chicken or the egg. This scenario of if we are forced to be able to engage with commerce digitally, is it people are going to then find themselves being banked, or is it a case of the businesses are just okay with that cash space, so they're not going to change?
All right, so cash is always going to be around. What we're trying to do is the reduction of cash within the society. So you're always going to have certain segments that are going to pay with cash, and we'll have that the older aging population. This is what they know, so they are going to continue using cash. Yes, they're going to be having the bank accounts and be able to transact within the ecosystem, but they're not going to be utilizing technology as much as we would want them to. So the adoption of the cashless and adoption of utilizing technology will come on for the millennials and the Generation Zs as time progresses. But in order for them to become bankable, in order for them to utilize the services, they need to be put in place. It needs to be there for them to use it.
Well, it's going to be an interesting time. It'll be amazing to learn about, the feedback you get from that survey. I don't know, is that going to be made public, or is that specifically for the Trinidad and Tobago IFC, for them to make decisions internally?
All right, so the information is going to be utilized to really create a nationwide strategy for financial inclusion. At this point, I can't say if it's going to be shared with the general public. I believe that we should, but I will consult and see how would that be done. But for initial stages, it's going to be utilized to create a national financial inclusion strategy and a roadmap on how do we deal with the unbanked, the underbanked, and the unbankable, and how do we get them into the financial space.
That's so interesting, especially when so many of us, I mean, I've seen the data from Trinidad and Tobago, Telecommunication Association of Trinidad and Tobago. We have more phones than people.
Yes.
So the fact is we are very educated on how to get online, but that cash side is just too strong for us to actually move beyond just cash.
Yeah, it is. And even though if you look at surveys and information coming out of the banking sector, currently we have 81% bank account ownership within Trinidad and Tobago. However, we only have 67% of those persons who own a bank account utilizing the bank accounts. So coming out of that survey, we need to understand why is this and what's preventing persons from actually not using it. The ones that have it are not using it, and then the further 19% that don't have the bank accounts are not within the financial sector. Why are they not there? So we really need to we are digging deep to get that information. And the TTRC is working with different agencies, different private sector agencies to really help us and ensure that whatever we develop, whatever we gather, the information we gather is utilized in a accurate and well-defined manner.
Well, that's promising to hear that we are using data to make decisions. Anil has a follow-up question as it relates to the unbanked. Wants to know what's the current percentage of unbanked in Trinidad, because he apparently has been looking for that figure and doesn't know where to look.
Yeah, the current figure is 19%. However, as I said, we have 81% bank account within the country. You have 81% of the population owning a bank account. However, 67% of those persons utilize it. And we have 19% that are not banked at all.
So can you just elaborate on what you mean by not using it? Is it a case of they have a bank account, but it's dormant? What do you mean by they're not using it?
Right. So in some cases, these person may have got a bank account because of a job they had, or got a bank account to receive some sort of social grants. As soon as that was done, they stop using the bank account, so they are now dormant in the system.
So those people are considered having bank accounts, but they're not active. So it's
Yes.
just there basically. So they're
Yeah,
in the
it's just
system.
there. They're in the system, but it is not being utilized.
Okay, Cool. So when it comes to from a age perspective, is it a case that we can drill further down from that to say, okay, the 81% who have bank accounts, the majority of them are, millennials and Gen Z, or is it a case of it's spread out across age groups?
All right, so it's currently spread out across age groups. Um, the fine details of how much in which particular age bracket, we don't have that data just yet.
Okay, all right. So Anil has a follow-up because he wants to know, I'm not sure how you have quoted 81% having bank accounts. So does it mean that 19% are unbanked?
Yes, if you visit the TTFC's website, we actually did a paper on financial inclusion within Trinidad and Tobago, and that paper will highlight all this information that I'm speaking about here. So yes, 81% have bank accounts, 19% do not, are unbanked right now in Trinidad and Tobago.
I find this data actually quite promising. And for those who are interested in getting that data, we will peel that away from Carlos and get his information. But make sure to check in the comment section and sign up, and we will send it directly to your email inbox. Now, I feel like this information is extremely important for business owner because there's that 81% of individuals, especially when you look at credit card. I recently went on a trip and it was completely paid by credit card points. So what are the opportunities here for businesses to put themselves in a position to access people like me who are saying, okay, I will use my credit card?
All right, so that takes us into a different discussion. Credit card ownership in Trinidad is between 16 and 19%. So yes, you have persons owning a bank account up to 81%. However, persons owning a credit card is between 16 and 19%. So that is a total difference. So what the business owners have to look at is how many persons have access to that debit card. And that's locally, those new Visa debit cards, how many persons actually have access to those to really build your business model around.
I'm like a kid in a candy store with all this data. I am loving it. This is so cool. Anil just said I want to close off because he had quite some great questions. He's like, I'm really looking forward to the results of your survey explaining what are the barriers to the unbanked. And Anil, make sure to sign up to the Straight Off the Bat newsletter, and we will send that straight to your inbox. Once it's shared with us, we'll share it with you. So this 16 to 19%, do you have any insight onto why it is there's such a small amount of individuals who have credit cards?
It comes down to actually being eligible. Remember, to actually access your credit cards, this is a form of credit extended to the person by the banks. So you need to have a certain level of a credit limit, as we would say, where you will be able now eligible to actually have this type of card, which is your credit card. So that could be one of the barriers to actually accessing a credit card. But as far as anything else, I'm not sure.
Okay. And this Visa debit conversation is so important because within that 81% of people who are banked, all of them have the option to access this Visa debit, which means they can pay for stuff, right? Online. So I have some questions there for you, but we'll do it right after the break. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. We're here on Thursdays and we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from YouTube, smash that subscribe button because we're here to tell you a lot of information that will help you understand how to manage your money. Today, we're discussing shifting to a cashless reality of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago with Carlos Newton. He's the manager of financial system service delivery at the Trinidad Tobago Financial Center. We're going to bring him back in because this conversation has evolved into data that I think it's so important for us to make decisions, as business owners and as consumers. We're having a conversation about the Visa debit cards. Now, I know not all of them are actually you can use online. Do you know much about the Visa debit cards?
All right. So from the Visa debit cards perspective, you have different banks provide different access with these cards. Some of them you can utilize them online up to a certain limit, and then some of them can only be used locally. Um, those numbers or those percentages we don't have just yet, but again, we are straight off the bat, so someone may be able to provide that information for you.
Yeah, that's a good one there, Carlos. Bounce that back one to me. Again, guys, don't forget, sign up and we will send all the information to you. And we've also put into the comments, if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, the financial inclusion report. It's in the link there. So, information is there for you to peruse. Now, you know, we discussed earlier about this section of individuals who are banked, which is 81%. Obviously, there is some unbanked individual, but for the purpose of this conversation, you mentioned earlier about just the benefits of having cashless, interactions and engagements. Are you able to have like a magic 8 ball and say, okay, cool, this is going to be the trajectory for the consumer in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is what businesses should be doing?
Globally, payments are switching to cashless. Majority of the countries, if not all, countries globally actually switching to cashless payments. So the trajectory for cashless is I can't remember the figures offhand, but it's in the billions with by 2025. So I would say to business, get into it now. Speak to your banking advisors and get the requisite infrastructure in place, because there's a shift taking place right now, and even from the pandemic and continued after the pandemic, you are now seeing businesses shifting to online, seeing businesses shifting to card payments only, contactless payments. So I would say to any business that is looking or in business now, redefine your business model, speak to your banking advisor, and get the requisite technology in place.
Now, we spoke about the fact that cash is a huge culture in Trinidad and Tobago. I think what we also need to add is the brick and mortar, right? So we have, I mean, this is a personal view, guys. What I'm about to share is the personal view of me, not straight off the bat. I just feel like we tend to copy and paste stores in the malls. So we are so hell bent on saying, okay, I have this store and you could come in. So there's going to be this hurdle, and it already exists, where we're talking about a cashless society, but and contactless, but we can't have that without an online presence and actually being able to access your consumer online. So, what can you see being one of the bigger hurdles when it comes to shifting online?
Um, One, as you just pointed out, because of culture doesn't dictate us to say, oh, let me go purchase, if it's from a clothing store perspective, let me purchase this jacket from a clothing store. We have a culture of touch, feel, see, try on before we purchase. So what I can say is that is one of the major hurdles, culture. We need to really put the narrative in place and saying, here's what, let us now drive persons to our websites. So let's do a hybrid to start off. Yes, we have the brick and mortar, but however, we have the online access as well, that we can tell consumers or returning customers, hey, that same top you purchase, if you want to get another one, you can actually purchase it online. No need to come in the store. We have it delivered to your home within 24 to 48 hours. So yes, there's going to be that hurdle for us to cross. However, if you implement technology utilizing fintech or anything like that, if you implement technology and having that e-commerce access to your consumers while having the brick and mortar, and then you really gradually transition into the entire online presence cashless.
I love the fact that you mentioned hybrid because when you said try on, my millennial side was like, they have real people that ordering from Shein. It's actually become so popular that it is ranked pretty high in terms of searches in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's from Kwaito, and nobody's trying it on, right? So there is this segment of consumer that is willing to risk it, and if it doesn't fit, they'll just sell it or give it to somebody. But that mention of hybrid model is so important because I've also been in situations where shoes I have very, very large feet. They're ridiculously large. So I have to try it on before, and then after I try it on one time, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm sticking to this brand. I'm not going into try something else. So from a hybrid perspective, how important is it for these businesses to be like, let me stay on the pulse of the younger consumer versus the old consumer? Because a lot of people will say, well, this young people thing, this cashless society thing is young people thing. That's not who have the money. What say you to that?
Yeah, so it comes back to brand loyalty. In order for you to stay loyal to a brand, they need to have the things in place that actually, and it comes back to also understanding the customer. So if you have a customer base that is saying, hey, I am willing to purchase online and try it on. Some people will say Shen is life, right? So as well as some people will say, no, I need to go to the store. But if you have both models, that hybrid model in place, and you can tell, here's what I have: the Asian demographic, as well I have the Gen Z who's willing to purchase online, and they don't need to see what I have in store. When it gets home, they'll try it on, and if it doesn't fit, they'll send it back for replacement. So that sort of change and that sort of implementation and understanding your customers and understanding who you're providing your service to will help businesses move forward.
Yeah, and I can imagine some folks might be a little overwhelmed with all this information. Um, but my question is like, what choice do you have, right, in terms of being able to stay open? Because I'm seeing businesses closing stores to closing locations, because we are not as consumers going into their stores. So, what advice may you have to that business owner that may feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it?
Well, the first thing you have to understand as a business owner, you need to go and research, why are my customers not coming to my stores? Why are they not purchasing anymore? Once you understand that, then you'll be able to put the right things in place and right product and the right services in place to really have customers. If it's not come to the store, again, go into the online, because one of the reasons why they're not coming to the store could mean that they're getting the same product online. And then you will just have, as a business owner, you have to shift your business model to really suit. If that is your customer base, you will have to switch your business model to really speak to that customer base, right? If it's customers are not coming into your store anymore, understanding why they're not.
And what I also hear as well is there's this fear, right? Because if you've built a business, especially if it's a family business, we've spoken about family businesses before on this show, and one of the things that we realize is an adoption and legacy of certain things that has been happening over a period of time. So there's this fear of, if we go online, then we will be massacred. Like, people are going to be like, oh, this is ridiculous, and while we're trying to figure out contactless and cashless, there will be mistakes. So, what can a business do?
Trying to navigate that aspect, it's for any business is going to be daunting. Um, But again, feedback and data is important. If you go online and you're getting the negative feedback, you have to take that feedback and say, okay, how can I improve my service delivery to my customers where I can change that narrative, right? Once you're able to do that and not just look at the customers are beating you down and bad comments and bad reviews, but take that data that you're giving. Any press is good press. any feedback is good feedback. So you can take that and now say, here's what the negative feedback, I need to work on this to fix this problem. The positive feedback, I need to continue what I'm doing here. And when we make that shift now to that whole online presence, ensure that the customer experience, which is the number one thing, customer experience is cut above the rest. So you look at the different things. You look at Shen, look at how do they provide unmatched customer experience. You try to adopt that within your business model when you're switching from that brick and mortar to the hybrid, or from the brick and mortar to strictly online.
I love that you reference looking at other companies doing it, because it doesn't make sense reinventing the wheel. And as a consumer, I've had, when at the beginning of lockdown, I've experienced the supermarkets, like I feel like I was part of their learning curve, ordering stuff online and then waiting outside for way too long for something I think that they should have, because I experienced the same thing when I was away. I purchased some stuff on Target, 2 hours later it shows up. So when it comes to that learning curve and actually understanding, hey, there are these companies that are doing it, is it important for business to be like, okay, this is exactly my industry, I'm going to figure out this, I'm in clothing, so I'm going to see what Shein is doing. I have a supermarket, so I'm going to see what Target is doing. Do you think that's good advice?
Yes and no, right? Yes, you have to look at the things that are out there, but you also have to choose the right fit for your business. It's not a one size fit all. You have to do a research on different actual categories. You have to look at the Shen, you have to look at the Amazon, you look at some smaller stores that are online and see what they're doing. Look at their reviews, see what are they implementing. Because again, when you go to contactless payments or cashless payments, right, it actually can give you data on spending habits of your consumers. So you can utilize the data that you gathered, utilizing the don't reinvent the wheel, utilize the persons that implemented things out there. You evaluate your business model, utilize that information to really build your brand, build your company, build your products that you're putting out into the market.
And one of the things you mentioned earlier that I think, I mean, I just feel like we need to reiterate this like 1,000 times over, because I've literally been at events where entrepreneurs have said, yes, I do it on a gut feeling. Yes, there is a, level of experience and knowledge in business, but there's a lack of acknowledgement of data. So the fact that we're able to have that financial inclusion report, by the way, guys, it's in the comment section. Where else can a business go to get this information to shift over to this digital payment space?
Um, there are a lot of information available online, so you can actually Google it, Bing it. There's a lot of information available to the average business person online to access. Now, the TTIFC as well will put data out there as well as it relates to cashless and cash payments, even cashless versus contactless. That is a paper that we would have published in the future, giving persons an insight on, okay, these are the differences, these are the advantages, these are the disadvantages, so you can actually help you make better business decisions. Also, speaking to your banking advisors, they would also have information on actually the trend in the market, what is taking place, what are they seeing more adoption of, what they're seeing less adoption of. Looking, there are different companies out there that provide services to tell you track records and provide data to you on actually how do you go about setting up a business, how do you gather the data necessary for your business line as well. So you can actually do that.
Yes, there's actually the publications from the TTIFC website, their reports and white papers. I think it's so important for business owners to be aware of their consumers. But I know you mentioned Google and Bing. Bing. But a lot of people be like, well, that's Americans, that's not Trinidadians. We think we're unique just like everybody else. So what say you when we are referencing all these things that are happening in the states, and well, for the most part for the states, and somebody goes, well, that's not Trinidad. What say you to that?
Um, what side to that? When you're in business, you have to think and think big. And in order for you to think big, you have to think outside of Trinidad and think outside of the box. So yes, you may say, "Oh, this is not Trinidad. This is the U.S. This is Europe. This is Mexico. Whatever country you're looking at." However, these are the big players that have capitalized on the market, and you are trying to do what they did. So what you have to do is try to replicate. Go from the beginning. Look at their story. Look at how they started to build the business to get them to the billion-dollar companies. So don't just say that, hey, it's outside of Trinidad. Our culture is I would have to say a follow fashion. Whatever is done outside of Trinidad in the US is something that we do here in Trinidad and Tobago, even by extension the Caribbean. So you also have to look at that. So don't just say it. Oh no, it's not Trinidad. You have to look, and if there is a model or there's a company within our landscape that can give you that sort of feedback, give you that sort of data, by all means utilize it. But if there is not, you have to look outside. You have to look at the bigger companies out there that have done it already, and the upcoming companies that are growing, that are currently doing it. Look at it, see what data provides the best information to you and to your business model.
That is some good advice because, as a business owner, you have so many things to manage, and it's a lonely place to get any information. Existing information is so important. We have been discussing cashless society, looking at contactless payments from the business owner as well as in consumer. But what I want to touch on is parents, because you have a lot of bank accounts that allows you to start, from young, understanding money and what it means to have a bank account. So do you have any insight as to why it's important for parents to have these discussions? Especially, I mean, personally, I did not have it growing up. So I ended up in a lot of debt and had to work really, really hard to get out of it. So from this cashless perspective, you as a young person get your first salary, you're like, you know. So what type of conversations should parents be having?
Right, so the first to that is financial education is important, right? Knowing finance and how to manage finance is important. As I said, getting that first salary and you want to go and splurge, you have to, financial education is from the parent's perspective, teaching your children what is savings, what is investing, understanding the differences, what you should and shouldn't do, right? Um, I always teach my kids of here is what 75-25 rule. 75% is for savings, 25% you can do whatever you want with that. But that's 75% that you're saving. You have to look at investments, look at good investments, understanding investments. When I was young, I had the privilege of understanding owning a bank account, and I started off with the right start. A lot of us um, that are up and a little up in age will understand or know what right start is. That's why we started off understanding that and going to the bank, and then the bank teaching you about savings and understanding what you need to save, how to save. These are important discussions coming from the parents now. We are now in a world of knowledge. Go online. Your kids are always online. They're always on their devices now. They grow up swiping. So if we can now teach them, here's what, instead of looking at a YouTube video, let's sit down 10 minutes of your time and look and understanding finances, understanding savings, understanding investments. Because there's a lot of things right now in ecosystem that you can utilize to teach them. So from that perspective, it's important to have these discussions with children so that once they grow up and they continue into their adult lives and their teenage lives, they have that knowledge, they have that understanding of how to save and not splurge, so that when a rainy day does come, like the pandemic did, you have something to fall back on.
And what about the parents who want to educate their child about digital payments? Because, growing up back in our day, um, you had this idea of, okay, I physically have $100, so you could spend $20 here, you could save $40 here, put this under your bed. But if you're a parent who want to further your child, leave a legacy, but don't actually have the capacity to have that digital payment conversation. So, for instance, you mentioned the Right Start account. You basically have these online payment options. You could actually have a notification saying every time you swipe your card, you'll get an email. So things like that. Like, what is a parent supposed to do if they themselves don't fully understand digital payments?
All right, so it comes back to financial education. I can safely say the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago have financial education actual classes going on within communities. If you can within your community, you can gather, I think it's about 20 persons, 25 persons. They will actually come within that community, whatever location, and they will actually teach about financial education, right? And these questions about contactless payments, contact payments, all these questions that you can ask and you will actually get the answers to it. So there are a lot of things out there in the ecosystem provided by the government for persons to actually gather the information. So if you as a parent don't know, you can actually access the information. Get together in the community, have these community groups focused on teaching your kids about money. It's all about money, teaching your kids about money. If not, yeah, there's this book, Robert Kiyosaki, Good Dad, Poor Dad. That's a great book. I would tell any parent to have their kids read it to give them that foundational level understanding of money and how money works.
That central bank option has been mentioned in Straight Off the Bat show before. We'll look for that episode and slide into the comments and share that with you. But that's so important that that actually is something that is available to us freely. Because if we can pull together and do a susu, we could pull together and learn about what it means to manage our money. Now, Chelsea in the comments has a great, and we're not gonna go through her comments, but I think you guys should check out her comment section on LinkedIn. I think her feedback on locally businesses may be struggling to establish an ecosystem that the international companies have, because managing an online store might just be added to the IT spec. So I don't know if you have any take on that, Carlos, because I experienced that as well in the marketing space. You're like, oh, it's social media, give it to a young person. So within the actual digital payment space, a business owner will be like, oh, look, give it to the IT staff.
All right, so coming from that perspective and looking at managing that e-commerce online store, there's software out there using digital financial services, DFS, that will actually provide you with the know-how of how to actually manage and run your online store efficiently, right? Whereas you can actually you'll get all the notifications, everything is listed on your website. They will go through how to list the product, the pricing line, the pricing point, how to set up your actual ordering and delivery, how you have your card set up. All these things are available to you online. It's available out there. The information is out there. Yes, I know it may be daunting for a new person coming into it. You don't know where to go, who to look to, where to get the information, but I can safely tell you it is online. All that information that you require is online. Some of them you have to pay for it. And I would also recommend, if you have a little, to invest in your company and invest in knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowing is power. So invest a little, pay for the information, pay for those little classes that will teach you how to run your e-commerce online business, and that will take you a long way in actually being successful.
Yes, stamp of approval with that. As a small business owner myself, I used to want to put on a cape and be like, I can do everything. Guys, secret, that's a lie. It's absolutely not the case. Um, so we have the episode with Central Bank where Dominic started gave us some insight into
Yes.
the central bank option for you to pool together 20 people and learn more. So head over to the comment section and the link is there. So we're gonna go on a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to look into our magic ball and ask for Carlos's feedback on the future of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat. Join us here on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you join us from any social media network, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, smash that button and be notified every time we go live to help you understand how to manage your money. We are closing off this conversation with Carlos because the discussion around shifting into the cashless reality of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago is so important for business owners, consumers, parents, and Carlos is in a great position as the manager of financial systems service delivery at the Trinidad Tobago Financial Center to give us insight. We want to bring him in. He gave us some gems on the 81% of individuals who have bank accounts in Trinidad and Tobago, which means that you guys as business owners have an opportunity to tap into those individuals who are actively using their cards. Guilty. So Carlos, we want to look into that magic ball and maybe, we won't hold you to it initially about your predictions on the future of digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago. What say you? Are you on mute there?
So
You-
okay,
you-
so I'll
yeah,
actually
that's
I'll
right.
actually give it to you twofold. I will look at the predictions within Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to the public sector, which is the government, where the necessary foundations are actually now being laid for actually digitization of payments across Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to government payments. TTIFC is working alongside a number of state agencies, regulators, to really enhance the delivery or the provision of these type of payments within government. For the banking sector, yes, it's coming. The banks, I know for surety, are working on different digital means of providing. We have them in the market. We have one such in Encash by Republic Bank. That is just one. There are more coming in the pipeline for Trinidad and Tobago. So I am seeing a shift to digital payments within the private sector, and the banks are doing so. We also have fintechs that are coming up, financial technology companies that are looking also to provide their technology to the consumers, right? But from the government perspective, I said, we are working along, and one of the things that we recently did is actually have and create instructions along with the Treasury Division to have payments accepted by payment service providers across Trinidad and Tobago. So that actually is another line of ease of doing business with the government. And even back in 2020, when we actually had the e-money order created, while working alongside the regulator, central bank, and these different regulators actually have that done. So there is a lot in the horizon as it relates to payments, and we are working with all stakeholders. We established working groups with Visa, MasterCard, United Nations. We have MOUs with them. So we are actually accelerating, and my job within the government, within TTFC, which is part of the government sector, is to accelerate payments or digitize payments across government. So it's coming.
Awesome. And I have one more question because I can't let you leave without representing I think I'm representing all of Trinidad and Tobago when I ask you about this, because we can't have the digital payments reality discussion without public sector allowing us to pay for our license online driver's permit.
Yes.
I said it, Carlos. What do you say to the people out there what to expect when they're paying for renewal of their driver's license?
All these services are coming soon to a licensing division office near you. Right, and that and as well as a number of services may it be through different ministries, that you can actually now go and pay online. I know, and for surety, license division is one. We have immigration division. We have the office of the attorney general as well. So there are a lot of movement and a lot of transition to digital payments within the government sector. TTIFC is committed, and in our change mandate and working with the Treasury Division, with the Ministry of Finance, to digitize these payments for the consumers of Trinidad and Tobago.
I am going to represent all of Trinidad by saying, on the flip side, no longer can we tell our bosses, I'm going to a licensing office and take the entire day off. So, you know, there's good times ahead for all of us. Thank you so much, Carlos, for joining us today. It really was an enjoyable discussion, and I learned so much on the shift into the cashless reality of digital payments in Trinidad and Tobago. If you are still here with us, hey, thanks. Sign up to be notified for our next live show via the links in the comments. And as always, be sure to follow and like us on social media. That's LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, so you don't miss a single live show. Thanks again for joining us. See you soon. Bye.